Well, welcome back to the Inner Power podcast. I am so excited because I have managed to wrangle some time, pull some spiritual strings, and I've got the wonderful Sarah Wiseman back live with me here. So good to have you back, Sarah. How you been?
Oh, really great, Peter. It's great to chat with you again today. Thank you.
I know, and we've been chatting between episodes, catching up, getting to know each other a little bit more. It's been absolutely awesome. And for those who don't know, Sarah has been a guest on Inner Power before, and you can obviously go and find that episodes on the podcast list or here on YouTube if you want to as well. Sarah is a renowned author, 16 titles under her belt, more to come, 1,200 podcasts under her belt, more to come. This lady is just an absolute insane work train by the sounds of it, but I love it because she's found the time to have a chat to us today. And we are going to be talking about something that is very prominent in our field. And Sarah herself is a wonderful visionary teacher and mentor, and we are going to be picking her brains. And today it's going to be about the big question that many people, when they jump into this world, is about the trust factor. If you're not familiar with the trust factor, it's also known as self-doubt. And we're talking about this on a channeling perspective. So when you're tapping into that greater universe and channel, sometimes we ask ourselves, how do I know whether it's me, and how do I know when it's them? So who better to ask than Sarah herself? So Sarah, how many times have you heard this question?
Yes, I have heard this question thousands of times, probably even with people. Yeah, and it's usually when people get the information that they've most wanted to hear, and it's like the perfect information, and then they're like, "But how do I know I'm just not making it up?" It's
That's the
just
phrase,
over
isn't
and
it?
over.
How
Yeah,
do I know I'm not making up? If we only had
yeah,
$1 for every time
yeah,
someone asked us or mentioned that, we would not be having to be working as
yeah,
much as we know. We love our work. We're here for love
yeah.
it. Yeah.
I even have in the piece I do a lot of teaching, and in the lesson that teaches people how to do this technique, the very next part is, how do I know I'm not making this up? That's the title of it. To just be like, okay, yeah, I know that you guys are all going to feel this. And um, then, because some people devolve into this idea of like, it's my ego talking, or I just wanted to hear it, or
Yeah.
it's just fantasy. And so I just say, leave that question on the table for a while. Just like, yes, I hear your question. How do I know I'm not making it up? Just relax that.
Yeah.
And then I want you to go do this process 6 more times, and then tell me if you think you're making it up still or
Ooh.
not.
Well, it's interesting that we're going to get into that. And we're going to get into this. Like Sarah's got some amazing tips and processes for anybody who's asked that question. And I'm pretty much guarantee if you're listening to this or you're watching this, you've asked yourself this question at some point in time. And you know what? I'm not exempt from that. I have done it. And I know Sarah has done it. And before we get into those, it's so important to, Sarah and I, so we're on the same wavelength about ensuring and showing people that as much as we embrace this work, we love our work and we tap in and we channel, but we're still human and we
Yeah.
have the human experience. And this is where I really want to bring it in. Now, Sarah, it was lovely because last time in our episode, if you want to be linked in the show notes here, is that you had your big breakthrough, your spiritual meltdown, maybe the shamanic death aspect around it. It really is. And, that's when that moment, for those who weren't aware, Sarah was on a beach, literally crying her eyes out about my life is not working. And then you just had a moment. So for those who didn't catch it, let's very, very briefly walk us through that moment again.
Well, I really was angry with the universe because I really wanted to be a fiction novelist, literally.
Come on, I know that you want to be
Yeah.
chick flick novelist.
Chick flick novelist. Yes, I'm saying it proud. And there's that, and I really, really wanted to do this. I mean, I'd been working on it for like 4 years. I think I'd written 4 novels and sent them off to publishers, and I didn't share this on the previous episode, but I had this weird thought that I needed to get 40 rejections and then something would happen. I didn't share that before, but I just had this thing, like, just keep sending them out.
That's a very random number.
Is it? I don't.
Look, where did that come from? Was that just a thought that's popped?
It just popped in my head, like, you need 40. But I thought at the end of the 40, I would have an accepted chick lit novel.
Yep.
But that isn't what happened. I believe I sent the chick lit novel to it was either the 40th or the 41st, like whichever that line was crossed. And it was sitting with that agent. So I sent it off. And then nothing had happened. All these 40 rejections. It's awful. You get these, thank you for sending, bleh. It's just these horrible rejections from publishers, or maybe you just don't even hear. And I was just on the beach crying, like, what? I don't get it. Like, I'm working so hard.
Yeah.
I thought this was my path. All I'm doing is getting rejected. And then this idea of, if whatever you want me to do, I'll do it. Like, I give that up. If I'm not supposed to do this, if I'm supposed to do something else, I let go of the whole dream. I just was like, it's obviously not working. And that was when the next day, the agent that I'd sent that 40th or 41st, I don't know what you count as being done with 40, that was the person that contacted me and said, the novel won't work, but would you like to do, she said, it feels like you're channeling something in this work. Would you like to write a book about channeling? And that was the start of everything. That was, and I think that, so the agent, usually it takes agents a very long time to sell books, but I think that was contracted like really fast, like within a month or so.
Wow.
Which, is not how it happens normally. That was just how it happened then. And then, the universe is so funny, because then I had this book to write about channeling, and I really didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to do it.
Hang on. Let's just put that in context. Here's a person who's a channel, but is not sure how to write a channeled book.
Yeah.
I love that irony. I love that.
So, yeah, I mean, I had been channeling. So sort of this timeline is a little mixed up, but I had been channeling. But I had this strange process where I would just go sit on this old sofa and it would arrive, but I couldn't make it happen. I actually thought I thought maybe it's the sofa, like maybe the sofa is magic, and I'm just like, I couldn't figure it out. And so then she said, so this was the gift. It's like, please write us a book about channeling. And so I had some channeling to provide, but then they're like, well, this is great, but this is only half a book. Please write about how to do the channeling process, and this is where I didn't know. And so that was the start of, okay, how do you do this stuff? Like, how do you channel? How do you channel in writing? And so I had to go and research that. Like, what was that even in the past? Like in the past, I found out that people would channel on long strips of wallpaper so that their hand would not, if you're trying to channel on a little piece of paper, you have to keep going back and forth. But if you're channeling with your eyes closed, you want to just be able to keep writing. And so I got these very ancient books that were channeled like from the late 1800s.
Wow.
And I just dived into it. And then I was like, well, how do I do my process? Well, my process is I don't use a pen. I close my eyes and I type on a laptop. And how does that work? It comes in this ear, like all these picking apart, like, how does it happen?
Wow,
and that
you
was
really had to slow down and snapshot yourself doing the process.
Right.
Wow. And that's not easy, because when you're in channel, usually your energy is moving a lot faster. It's not
Yeah.
the easiest thing to slow down or stop and focus on each element. So that's an
Yeah.
impressive process.
Yeah. And what it was to me is I didn't know that I would be teaching this work, but that was the first place of, okay, let's break it down, and here's how you do it. And suddenly I realized there's other things I want to learn how to do, and I want to learn how to teach that also.
Wow.
Um,
It was a baptism by fire, really, wasn't it? It's like,
yeah.
here's your channeling, here's your path, but provide us with a book on how to do it. And you're like, okay, I do it.
Yeah.
It's understanding. So that's amazing. And that is what I love about that is like the moment you've surrendered, the path has become kind of revealed and they've helped you along the way. I think it's that whole take your hands off the steering wheel for a second, because clearly how you're driving or where you're driving is not paying dividends.
Yes.
And as soon as you let it go to autopilot and let universe take over, they can take you where you
Mm-hmm.
need to be. So, and that takes a lot of trust. And that's why it brings it up, like, to do that and have that element. Now, of course, like that's mean going from that very first, I love the fact that like 24 hours, like universe has provided an opening and showing you the way. And that's led to far more books and writing and channeling. But let's have a look at it, because clearly, I know from my side of things, going through it, I love the way you said, like, you do struggle with your own head, what you're receiving.
Mm-hmm.
How, like, when you look at this, how have you dealt with that trust factor? Or how have you kind of managed to negate or work on or the self-doubt? What's something that you've done through your career to help with that?
Yes. So this isn't quite answering exactly that question, but the first part of that is in receiving the channeling, I received spiritual teachings, and I knew that it wasn't, I trusted that it was from another source, because I really didn't understand what I was writing. Like I was writing all this information and it didn't really make sense to me. Like I hadn't elevated up enough to the level to understand it yet. So I knew, that's one part. I knew what was coming through was higher level than my understanding was. So that's specifically about the channeling, or maybe you could even say, like, with you're dealing with the guides or in mediumship, the information that comes in is higher level than your personality knows. The other part is the trust part. For me is I use a lot of tools, and I teach this way too. Like I'll use clairvoyant visioning, and I'll use mediumship, and I'll use channeling, and I'll use the body, and I'll use nature. And so it's almost like this cross-checking of tools for every question. And that really takes away any false leads or false ideas if you're cross-checking across different systems. And then I also tell people, or I also work with, you don't just go in and ask for guidance once and there's the answer. It's more
Yes.
like yeah. Well, I mean,
Hey,
sometimes
if we could do that with
happens.
the lotto ticket, it would be a lot easier.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. No, but you don't just do that once. It's a practice, and what you're looking for is the pattern of information that starts to come over time.
Oh,
That's what it is.
big
Yeah,
words, big, so important. Like
yeah,
practice number one, and patterns, they're so
the
important.
pattern.
Yeah. And so you developed your own kind of cross-referencing to help you recognize these patterns?
Yeah, exactly. And
Wow.
a lot of, so I work with two ideas. Within, this is like a what is it, the George Harrison song, within and without. And the time will come when you see we're all one and life goes on within you and without you. So within, you go within and you do your meditation and you do your dreaming and you do your visioning and you do the guides and the mediumship and your body, and you receive that way. And then you go without into the big world and you just wait for events and synchronicities and people to come at you, and everything's answering the same question. Like all the within and all the without is like, it forms a pattern so you can see what's happening.
And I like that because with those patterns and the way you're talking about letting people, places, all these like universe provide these answers to you from different places. With that, do you have that like process when you have, because I know I've done it and I've always said to spirit, my thing is, if I'm not listening, which is probably more often than not, because I'm doing up listening, but it's like, I always say, if it's really urgent and I'm not getting the message, I say, please bring me 3 different people with the same message on the same day. Like I get super specific with a pattern. And even when I get to 2, I'm like, I'm already paying attention. I'm like that little, like, the pretty prairie dog on the plane going, what,
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm already starting because it's a pattern. You like, do you find that like you wait, or have you ever waited for, like, you might get one answer, but with your cross-reference, you're waiting for it to come again? Is that something that you use?
Absolutely. Yeah. And especially sometimes, this phrase like divine timing is not our timing. And so sometimes either the answer isn't ready for us yet, or we're not ready for the answer yet, or we need to learn more in order to understand the answer. So I don't worry. Like I talk about this idea of, the word I use is strands. So strands to me are chunks of synchronicities patterned together.
Okay.
And so you might have a strand, like maybe you're working on a work strand, and maybe you're working on a romance strand, and a health strand, and a money strand, and a travel strand, different parts of your life. And so some of those might be activated, really flowing fast, and others might just be stuck in the mud for a couple years, just like that's not moving. And so I always look at this idea, like what's moving, what's working. That's where I put my attention. If something's really stuck, I just kind of let it rest. So part of it is about not only getting answers, but knowing sometimes the timing of the answer is not now, and that's fine. Like you can just, it's okay. You don't have to know everything at once.
Yeah, we have to. And I think that's a very important point for a lot of listeners to stress, is you have to relax on the timing. Not everything's about the now. I think that's a big thing. You can ask the question, but it doesn't mean you're going to get the answer now.
Well, and if you go back, Peter, to that idea of like where I was asking that question about the chick lit book, chick lit, ask, like I'm asking the wrong question, right? I was asking the wrong question. So when I slowed it down and just let all that go, the answer had probably been there a long time. I just hadn't seen it.
And I love that. Like, that is so true. Like, we forget sometimes we might be asking the wrong questions, and we might be going, because we look at it. And I suppose, in this situation that you're talking about, that you went through, like I've been through it myself, going, but why isn't this happening? I've put so much time and energy and effort into this, but why isn't this happening? Like, I want this, I've worked towards this, you've helped me this far. Why stop it now, kind of thing? And then it's simply because we're not seeing the turn they had in that process for us. And I love that. And I think that stems back to, we forget, if you're not getting a good answer, you're not asking a good enough question.
Yeah.
And I love that. And I love that you brought that up.
Yeah. Or sometimes maybe like I will ask or I'll offer to people to ask the broadest question, like instead of does person A have a crush on me? A common question that lots of people would want that answer to is like, the question might be, show me the true nature of my relationship with person A. Ooh. So it sort of takes that whole crush thing out. It just like, show me what's really there.
But isn't even just hearing you say that, the difference in the question, as soon as you word it, you just kind of go, that's so much more robust, it's so much more profound. And it seems to me like I was hearing that going, that's so much clearer.
Yeah.
Like,
because the universe, if the universe already knows that person A, like is a totally horrible person for you, they don't want to talk about crushes. They want to talk about let's look at what's really going on here. So
Absolutely. And I know when I get into depth with my clients, that's one thing they go, oh my, there's a lot of detail on that. Yeah, because I'm looking forward with you. There's like
yes.
it's like you talk about the streams, like I follow that line and I project on that line what it's looking for. That's an amazing thing. But it's like, I like that you're bringing up, it's like asking the better question, or like you might be asking the wrong question. And so that kind of does play a part. And the divine timing kind of does come in a big part of doing that. And I suppose, we touched on a little bit about that surrender aspect. You have to sometimes surrender to divine timing and those kind of things. But it's like, so those processes you look at the pattern, and it's okay to ask. Like, I think some people might get, how do they say it to me? They say things like, I feel like I'm a bit of a broken record. I keep asking the same question. I get an answer and I get an answer. And this brings me up because it's coming to my brain, because I recently did an event and I was connecting with mediumship, and this lovely old lady comes in. Her name was Alice. I'll never forget her. And in this situation, like, it's amazing how many people ask for a sign from spirit. Like, is this meant to be? And she says, I'm coming through because I have been sending signs and they're not getting them. And I was like, so I've said this, and I said, okay, I'm asking her in my mind. And she gave me the whole story. And she says, right, I've been sending feathers. I have given you a lot of feathers, but you're not recognizing the feathers. And you kept doubting the feathers to a point where you asked your friend, are these feathers a sign from her in spirit? And your friend said, no, it's just a bird feather. And then she goes, well, then I sent you the whole bloody bird, and the bird smacked into the windshield. And then as soon as I said that, the lady in the corner, she's going, that's me. Oh my God, that's my mum. And she goes, and the lady who I asked about the signs is sitting right beside me. And she just went red.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God. I said, I sent you the whole bloody bird and you still didn't believe it.
Yeah.
So some people get funny about asking again. Do you think it's okay to, because that's where that trust and that self-doubt, because we think, oh, is it not? Am I getting that message? Do I want it? That usual stuff. Do you find it okay to ask again?
Yes. Well, kind of this mix of asking all the time and completely relaxing, just like, because I like this idea of, there's this idea of like the red thread of destiny, where you cannot miss what you're being led to.
That sounds like a great title for a book. I'm just going to say the red thread of destiny.
It's something like maybe it's a Chinese proverb or something. I'm not really sure where it came from, but this idea that you can't miss your destiny. And so you can ask and ask and ask. Yes, I do that. And then you can also be like, I'll know it when it gets here. Like, I don't have to worry or stress. And that's funny about the feathers. That's like there has been times when I've been so doubting. And one time I was considering writing another book, or I was confused about what I was supposed to be doing. And I went on a hike with my husband, and I was like, damn it, I need to know what my path is, and I need to know by the end of this hike. Okay. So usually those backfire and don't work that well. But so we're walking along in the hike. It's beautiful, and I keep like every little animal. I'm like, there's the sign, or but there was nothing. It was just like a pleasant hike, and nothing happened. And I was again, here I am. I'm upset. I'm like, why is it not happening? And so we go over to this little picnic table and sit down for a moment. And I was just like, it's really sad because I asked for this sign and nothing happened. And then I looked down at my feet, and there is a very giant feather. It's about this long. It's like a white feather. Yeah. And I said, look, there's a feather. That's a sign. And I said, but I don't know what it means. And my husband looks at me like I'm insane. And he's like, it's a quill, you idiot. It's for writing. You're supposed to keep writing. And there it was. It was a white quill, like from... And I'm just like, okay. So So this is my life. Like, I never know what's going on. The signs are clear as day. I'm always misinterpreting it, but you just have to keep going with that, because you just
little
have to
caveat here for anyone watching, listening. Remember, as much as we deal with this every day, it's like anything. It's the proverbial forest from the trees, don't you think? It is. It's like, as much as we're in it, we're really good at doing it for everyone else.
Yes.
But we can't read for ourselves. So we experience the same pain. And that's why we're talking about it. That's why we're bringing it up. But I love the fact that you got a quill. And I love the fact that your husband's there going, come on, seriously,
Hello?
don't understand that. You've been asking the question, you ask for it all day, you finally get it, and you go, but I'm not sure what it means.
Yeah, exactly.
That brings up a really important point. And I want to ask, how important, or what part does expectation play on the trust or self-doubt factor?
Well, I think that expectation, for me, I expect that I will receive an answer for sure.
Yep.
Because that's been proven over years and years and years of doing these practices, and it always happens.
Yep.
I expect that the answer may be different than what I thought or hoped or even considered. It may be different. And I expect that it will be for my highest good, because that's how the universe works, in my opinion.
Yep. No, I'm totally on the same wavelength with you there. And I love that you've mentioned that, because and I jumping in with that, because the things there, because when you look at expectation, you've worked, like I can see even that you're under, like, I know I can see that brain ticking away there and going, yep. And it's like, but the expectation with the trust and the self-doubt, do you find that people might get caught up in what they expect the answer to be? It's almost like there's an attachment to the question.
Yeah. So a very common example might be someone might come and they're asking all these questions about a relationship, like that maybe they're married, and like I'll see right away that in that situation the marriage isn't going to stay.
Yeah.
It's just there's somebody's for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And so it's really difficult to, like, we see what we see. The person is still on the track of, I would never get divorced, or I would never, I have to be married. And we can already see that. And so then you have to sort of work with the person around their belief system and respect their need to be in the process. It's their life.
Yeah.
And but just offer what we see without any kind of judgment. Or I'm not sure that answered exactly, but that's a very common situation. Like they have this, somebody wants it to be one way and it's just not going to be.
And I think, so now taking that context, and it's like, I think, again, it's the forest from the trees. So when we're connecting with a client and helping with that, I totally agree. We just see it for what it is. And I think because we don't have that emotional attachment to the outcome or what the answer is going to be, we can see it for what it truly is.
Yeah.
We're not trying to cherry pick the idea or the situation. Yeah. And I think that plays a very significant part when you as a person, so, are asking, anybody who's listening, when you're asking for the universe for that sign, or you're looking for an answer to the question, you're going to ask, why are you getting this self-doubt? Why are you asking that question? I would, like, looking at these examples that Sarah's been talking about, is you've got to release that expectation and attachment to the outcome. And I think, coming right back full circle, almost like, you released the expectational outcome with your novel writing.
Yeah.
And I suppose, but, and it's amazing coming back full circle. But when we look at this though, it's like, the self-doubt and trust is always going to be there. It's something like, so, but you've kind of developed your own little way of doing it. And I think the big thing is practice too. like it's through experience, like you've learned, and maybe some help with your husband along the way by the sounds of it. But
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
a bit of outside help never hurts.
Yeah.
But we have that. But looking at it, because it is a common thing. Now, adding that, realizing we've got expectations, attachments, we should really like look at that first, and we've got to almost surrender those to the universe when we're asking the question. But let's get into it and let's have a look. What are some tips that you can give our listeners and viewers, like succinctly, to help work through this self-doubt? Is this me? Is this them? So what are some tips that you can give us?
Well, I think that it's okay if you just really can't trust. You don't have to trust. You can still work on your spiritual connection practices, which could be. I work with a kind of meditation style I call intuitive gathering, where you're not going super deep, but you can learn this stuff. It's like you can learn the piano, or you can learn to paint. You can learn intuition. So you start to work with that, and you can, if you can't trust yet, just let that go. Just don't trust. It's fine. And then taking a look and being really honest with yourself about, like, I work with a lot of people who have a lot of really old belief systems, or belief systems that are piled on them from childhood or cultures, schools, family. And like, start to chip away at that and discover, who you are outside of all of what you were loaded down with as your operating system. Most of it's not real, like letting go of a lot of that. And then a lot of people have like tremendous trauma in their, childhood coming up, or, like there's abuse of all kinds, addiction, bad habits that they're doing now. And like, really looking like, so say you're a person with who drinks a lot, so that's going to cloud everything. Or if you're a person with like a big shopping issue, like kind of looking at like, where are your habits unhealthy? And it's not to put any judgment or blame on that, but like kind of looking at like, how am I acting in the world? How am I showing up? And just looking at the pieces that are a little more just unhealthy or not useful, and kind of looking at like, how is this preventing me from being able to connect clearly? Because if you're just like in super, and I don't have any judgment at all, but if you're in super
But it's an
party,
outside influence. Like
yeah,
it
it's
will
like
affect you.
it's gonna, like, if you're eating junk food all day long, or you're partying all the time, like it's gonna affect. Or if you're always fighting with your sister, or if you're shopping on Amazon all day long, or saying for a friend.
I was gonna say I think this shopping thing's coming up a
Interesting,
little
no.
bit too often here.
Yeah. So,
It's
but like
it's just
all these,
it's for a friend. It's for a
yeah,
friend.
or like if you're on your phone all the time, like all these ways of like sort of being distracted.
Yeah. Okay.
Like if you're distracted, like look at like, what am I distracting from? Because there's probably a deeper answer there to explore. Like,
and I suppose, and that's been, I totally understand that. I refer that to as, there's things that we do distract ourselves, but it's like the junk in the trunk. And what I mean is, by upstairs, there's stuff there that's actually going to cloud that. And I think we talked about it. I don't think it was quite mentioned when we were recording, but you talk about the dam, building up the beaver dam. And so these things. So one of the things you recommend is really becoming aware or mindful of your own actions and how that's influencing your headspace.
Yes, and not doing it from a place of shame or or any kind of self-judgment. Just like, what's there, like what needs to be sort of realigned or healed, released. Maybe some people do really well with therapy or work with a healer, like change some habits. Like just look at it like I always think, like you wouldn't give a toddler like a phone or junk food or alcohol. Like you'd keep them pretty like healthy. So like if your own self is not being treated that way, that's probably going to cloud all of your ability to like hear these messages that the universe is trying to help you with.
Oh, so yeah, okay. So in that essence, it's like really looking at yourself, and
Mhm.
that's me. And whatever we're doing like that, it is ultimately going to affect our energy
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
how we. And that's mean we're all energy, and how we're going to receive that energy. And if you're distracted, you're not going to hear those messages or receive
Yeah.
those messages in the first place. So that's a really important way of looking at it, because and it's just the reality of the situation. There will be people who are listening to this going, but I ask questions and I don't receive answers. Well, they can send you the whole bloody bird and give you
Yeah.
all the feathers you want, but unless you're really paying attention or even have the awareness to work on receiving them in the first place,
Yeah.
it's going to make it very, very hard. So I love that tip. It's like making sure you're aware of it's, I suppose, like your receivership, for a lack of a better word that I'm
Yeah. Or
coming up
it's
with.
almost like, yeah, this feeling of like sometimes people, I'm sure you talk about this, you get this full body chill when something is
Yes.
real. So it's almost like you want that feeling of excitement or expectation or magic, or something's happening. Like every time you go out or in every part of your life, it's like the universe is communicating. And so what's going to happen today? It's a really exciting way to go about your life. Like something's going to be communicated. I can't wait to discover what it'll be.
I like that, because yeah, and it's actually because it is being communicated. So once you
Yeah.
work on your receivership, like we were talking about before, then it's about like acknowledging it and saying it is being communicated. And I suppose it's learning what that is for you as an individual, isn't it? So,
Yeah.
like, as you know, like I get the goosebumps, especially when I'm in the mediumship mode. It's like they go,
Yes.
"Yeah," I'm like, "That's it." It's like there's no doubts whatsoever. It's completely doubt. What's one of your little idiosyncrasies with that when you know it's being communicated to you?
Well, I was just on a little trip. So I live in a kind of a conservative town, and um, I just took a little day or a couple day trip up to some islands in the west U.S. and um, I got there and something was different, right? And I couldn't put my finger on it, and I realized that what I was sensing was like everything was awake. Like the people were not, maybe not every single person, but lots of people were awake. The nature was wild awake. Um, there was a nature human interface that was conscious,
Wow.
and like it just was alive. Like when you go into a forest and you're just like, whoa, it was that. And that just sense of this is different, this is amazing. It was astounding, and it was just because of the consciousness level was lifted up.
It was lifted up, and it obviously just hit you when you're receiving it, and
Yeah. Yeah.
automatically you're trying to equalize and get to that level to feel, and you would feel yourself being lifted
Yeah.
to that.
Yeah. Or I remember I've taught in Hawaii some, and like here in the US, when you take people into meditation, you have to lift the vibration up. And in Hawaii, like you have to bring people down in order to, because
Okay.
there's so much like I don't know, etheric energy there. It's like people are all up in this space, and you're like, okay, we got to go to this place where we're going to meditate. So you guys got
Sounds
to
like
come down.
Hawaii's the place, people. Just saying, natural highs,
Yeah.
natural highs.
Not the island vibe.
The
Yeah.
island high.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting. It's being aware. So that's another great way of being aware of the consciousness or the energy that you're in as well. So that's something. So, and I think there's some really important tips that we acknowledge, is understanding the receivership. So being aware of our behaviors or patterns which may affect the receivership. So you can ask the questions all day long, but if your antenna's broken or your antenna's not
Yeah.
even on,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
good luck. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Yeah. Or if you're, yeah, exactly. And I think another tip is So it can be very difficult if you're a person interested in this kind of work and the mainstream is not supportive. So a very strong tip is go find community. If you one of the reasons I started working even online at all is because in the town I'm in, there's nobody. I mean, there are some people, but it's a very small 4 people doing this. Yeah, so
Wow.
there's no. So I wanted to find community, and so go into this kind of work, find groups, be with others that understand this, and talk to them and help each other. Like this idea that souls help each other, and each person has the puzzle piece that the next person needs, and so like go join. Even if you're shy and you just want to be online on a Zoom call with your photo off, just do it.
Yeah.
Just lurk. Be a lurker, but still connect. Still connect.
Note to self, next time in Sarah Wiseman conference, have random name, no picture, and I'll be a lurker. Actually, I'll call myself Lurch.
Spiritual Lurch. Yeah.
Spiritual Lurch. But I love that. And it is, again, I really like this too, because that also really ties into that kind of receivership aspect and what you're kind of talking about. And to sum that up, it's so important. And I think it's something that people, it's very easy to forget. And a lot of people do suffer from, and they don't have their tribe. They don't have that community. And you got to remember, I know if you're listening to us now, you're listening to a friend, because this is your vibe. This is your vibration. You're here listening for a reason, and your vibration, your vibe attracts your tribe. But I think I like that too, because even what Sarah was just saying, that community for you didn't fall in your lap. You had to kind of really work at that one, didn't you?
Yeah, finding, again, these ways that the universe just leads us to the right person. Like one of my first introductions in Portland, Oregon, there's quite a large psychic scene, and I was at an event. I sat at a table. The person across from me said, "Oh, do you know so and so?" It's like, who? And then the next day I called.
Sorry, don't know who they
yeah,
are.
yeah. It's like, okay. And so the next day I called, or probably called them. It was before email, I don't know. And then they're like, would you like to come to? We're having a psychic fair. Would you like to come? Like, yes. Then I met those people. So this idea of, and then for me, finding that most people that do this kind of work, or many people, are very, very sensitive. They might be super introverted, kind of quirky, feel they don't fit. And like, let's make a safe haven for all of us. Somebody said, like, it's the witches and the monks. Those were our past lives, that we were the witches and the monks. And let's make a safe haven to bring this kind of awareness out, and let's support each other. And because mainstream is still dominant, it's a dominant culture. So what we're bringing is kind of a pioneering work to be a new way of thinking about things.
And I think, it's being one of my bigger motivating factors is around the inner power community, is providing it. It's exactly those words, providing that safe place where you are free to be yourself, speak about these things. And again, you mentioned about the belief systems and how much they play an effect. And they do. Like, we're a beautiful small onion when we're born. By the time you reach 25, you're this big, and everybody else's crap and society's crap built up around you, and you've forgotten what your core center is more or less alike. And I like that too, because it's about having that safe place. And I know it's a big thing for me, and so many people are appreciative of it, because for the first time, for some, I feel like I can truly speak openly without being judged or someone forming an opinion. And it's such a powerful thing. But I love that other tip, because not just community, but I liked what you mentioned there. And it's so, like, I just, when you're talking about it, I just had a quick moment of reflecting myself about people. And you've got to, so community is great, and we have people in community, but people will be some of your biggest like what's the word I'm looking for? Signals or messages will come through people. Universe will nudge you through people, because there's a lot of us, and that's who we tend to interact on a day-to-day basis. So it comes through people, like you said, you're sitting cross opposite the table. And okay, I don't know who you are, but there goes one thing, another thing. So it's like
and it's like people like people are communicating the same way. Like if it's pretty easy to communicate, say, with an animal or with the plant or nature, but people, it's like we're so similar. It's just very direct. It's just like somebody could just tell you something, or write you something, you'll just get it faster. So the universe will put us into I also use this word convergence of this idea when the person, time, and place all come together magically, and that creates a life-changing event. Like you meet the person that takes you to the next thing. And that could be a love relationship, it could be a business partnership, it could be a friend, but that next step is like a convergence, and the next step begins. And so even if you're an introvert, you can still do it in an introverty way. You can still do it that way. You can just be with other shy people. It's fine.
You can do it in an introverty way.
Yes.
I love that. I'm not going to forget that one. It's like, but just to remember, you can still do it in it, because I know, but I totally do. I understand, because I've got quite a few clients and members who are on the introverted side of things, and sometimes they feel like they are missing out because they feel like, and I think I feel for them, because quite often I find they put guilt on themselves, or they feel shame because they feel like they should be more out there, or they should be connecting more. And I think it's great too, because it can happen. You can make it work, even though just like Sarah said, you just do it in an introverted way. There are ways around it. So don't get hard on yourself. Being down on yourself doesn't do anybody any favors. And it's quite interesting too, because Spirit will give me a nudge here with that. And this will just, I want to probably finish over before we wrap it up. But do you, like they're talking about this, being hard on yourself and your own headspace, how does this influence receiving messages and the trust and the self-doubt factor?
Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. I think a lot of the process of the whole thing is to, like you said about we're the little onion, then we become the layered onion. And I also see it like we spend our whole life learning all this stuff that's not true till midlife, and then from midlife on we spend the whole time releasing everything that was wrong. So
we're good gardeners, aren't we? We're just we're gonna grow it, and then we're just gonna strip it back.
So this idea of part of the whole reason to do this work is to release everything that you're not. And that is the shame and the doubt. Like that's all just attaching to whatever misbelief you were raised with. It's not real. Like you can just let that go and operate without it. And this entire way of working with a higher power. So funny. But this whole idea of working with something bigger than yourself will help you release all that falseness and bring you to less suffering, more enjoyment, more peace, just a happier, more purposeful life, which is the whole reason we're here.
And it's beautifully said. And we've got to do that. There is work involved. And obviously, that's what we want to talk about. These are some things. It's not always what you think the answer is going to be, even as you were saying before, Sarah. It's like you expect an answer that you're not expecting. But it is. And I think, we've got to be mindful of those mindsets and where our mind is at when we're working with the energy, because if our energy is lower, we're not going to be, because it is a higher power. They can lift you a little bit, but we can't rely on it to do it all for you.
Yeah, if we have all this, weights on our feet, it's harder. Like just take the weights off your feet. I do think one a tip that, like, I don't really believe like you have to have like a 2 hours meditation practice, or you have to. I just think a lot of these things, like,
I like you,
just
Sarah. I like you a lot. I
so
just like, I just
well,
hearing you say, I'm like, this chick's got it.
yeah. Well, I mean, you just like, so a lot of my process is like, I meditate in the morning a little after
Yep.
my dreams. I journal. Um, Not much comes out really. It's just sort of like in case something's going to be there.
Yep.
A lot of my practice is just go on a bike ride, go on a walk, kind of relax, muse. It's like it does not have to be formal. It's just this state of awareness and this state of receiving kind of all the time and
What a
noticing. Yeah.
wonderful tip. That is a huge one. I love that. I that is something I think such a valid point of sometimes with everything done, and like it's great that so many people are more interested in what we're doing. But like you said, there's too much structure
Yeah.
with what we're trying to do now. Whereas, like you said, it's just, as soon as you're saying it was for me, like the beach,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
walking on the beach is where I
Exactly.
receive the most.
Yeah.
I'm not meditating, but I consciously get myself into that state.
Yeah. You're in
And
a, yeah.
it's almost like your sofa, so
Yeah.
is it the
Yeah.
sofa? And I know I catch myself and go, I didn't get to the beach today. I'm not as switched on as I should be.
Right. 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 But yeah, it's just that idea of like a word would be making your life spacious. So not being too busy, not being too
Nice.
pressured, having time to just zone out. And um, because I do feel, especially with like I have kids that are in their 20s and they're kind of interested in this, but they have a lot of props and things like it's a different. And I'm like, you don't need any of that. You don't need this and that, and you just, they like it, so it works. It's great,
Yeah.
but like
Yeah.
you don't really need it, and um, you have everything you need just right by yourself doing nothing. It's all there for you.
Don't complicate it.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah. Oh, that's
yeah.
awesome. Honestly. So I love this. I've had to make notes because I'm like, wow, we've got some serious tips in here. I'm just going to quickly surmise them because I know, just being aware of the time here, is that, we've got to look at the receivership, and that's about your behavior. It's reflecting on who you are, what you're doing, and how it's influencing you as an antenna.
Mhm.
Yeah. So we've got that one. Then, and I love this, the way you said it, you've got to acknowledge the communication. Love
Yes,
the way you
yes.
said that. Acknowledge the communication. It's an amazing thing. And and I suppose, like you're saying, everybody will have to find their own. Yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
It's not set. It's, you have some common ones, like other people might get the goosebumps, but not everybody's going to get the goosebumps.
Yeah, yeah. And not everyone's going to be a medium, and not everyone's going to be a clairvoyant, and not everyone's going to be a hands
Mm,
healer. Like, it's just like in school, some people are good at maths and sciences, and some people are good at languages. Like, you're going to have your own little way that's the best. You don't try and do them all. Do
beautiful. And
what's
that's
easy for you.
a
Yeah.
great analogy. Like it is. So you'll find your strengths, and just because what works for someone else around you doesn't mean it's going to work for you. So acknowledging your communication and being aware to receive that is going to be a big step in the right direction on that trust or self-doubt for you. Then comes another big one, which Sarah's talking about around your beliefs. We're getting into the lovely onion part
Hmm.
of it here,
Hmm.
but that's the community, your vibe and your tribe.
Hmm.
And look, I love it. Like, even connecting with you, Sarah, like it's just like anybody, you're so much more natural. You're so much more free, and there's less stress
Hmm.
by, finding that community. And when you've got people around you who are supporting you, that trust factor will increase for you.
Yeah.
Like you're going to
Yeah.
believe in yourself more. You believe in yourself more. Your trust factor of what you're receiving will also increase.
Yes.
Yeah. So the community. So that's another one. Then we've got but also people. Be aware people will help interact with you. I love how you talk about the table, and people are going to be around you.
Yeah.
They will nudge you and guide you. And of course, the best one of them all. I have to say, I love you left the best to last. Just be you, be more spacious in your life, create that space. I love it because something I refer to is, remember, you have to sometimes actively create space for spirit and universe to work in and provide space for them to work through you. Because we have a lot of crap in our head. It's one of those big things, but there's some awesome tips and I love it. Just remember, guys, everybody's going to go through it. Practice, patience, and perseverance. They're my 3 Ps. They have served me well. Not my favorite things for any of my students, because they go, here we go, the 3 Ps once again. And some of them have been cheeky enough to dub them the 4 Ps because they're Peter's Ps. So it's Peter's practice, perseverance, It's just like, they're like, funny. But it's something that I do kind of focus on, but I like it. Honestly, everybody, listen to what Sarah has mentioned there about that. If you can apply some practice and working with those tips, that trust and self-doubt, the trust will go up and the self-doubt will go down.
Yeah.
And once that starts to happen, you really are living more in flow, aren't you?
Yeah. And once that starts to happen, remember, I know so many people on the path helped me, were that connection. And then remember, you take the hand that's helping you and then you put your hand down to help every other person. I know how to do that. Let me show you this. Or you just help them. You just help other people. And I think it's more exciting to help other people who are learning than it was for me to even learn how to do this stuff. It's so much more, I don't know. It just is really a big feeling. It's really big.
And look, you can tell, when you get speechless, like you just did, it's just a calling and it's something in the core of yourself. And I couldn't have come up with a more elegant way and a beautiful way to wrap this episode up, because it is as much as, and that's what we're here, guys. We've been through it. We want to help you. And again, I just want to offer a big thanks to Sarah for your time, your insight, your expertise, your advice. I could keep going on with the list of adjectives. It would be endless, but honestly, thank you so much for your time. And of course, if anybody you want to find out, just make sure Sarah Wiseman keeps things simple. She's easy to find. sarahwiseman.com. Like it. Go over and have a look. And as she has pointed out before, if you want to get it, she's happy to communicate with you, but she likes email. So get ready, Sarah. Your inbox is about to be inundated.
Yes.
But it's just but the whole thing is, don't be afraid to go check out what's on Sarah's website, because there'll be something there to help you. Whatever step or part of the journey you are on, she's there to help. But again, thank you so much for your time, Sarah.
Peter. Well, just really awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. And hope you've got and learnt a bit out of this episode. Hopefully it's helped you. And of course, and all the links and stuff will be loaded in the show notes. But thanks for joining in and listening once again. And I'll see you and hear from you on the next episode. Thanks. Have a good one.